1 minute ago, hourly help for Diddy found a bloody secret in the trash reveals. Chilling truth, bloody fetus in trash smelly. Not just once. Depo-Provera is a birth control injection containing medroxyprogesterone acetate given every 3 months. While effective and convenient, it carries serious side effects. Common issues include menstrual irregularities, missed or prolonged periods, weight gain, mood swings, depression, and reduced libido. Long-term use can significantly lower bone density, increasing the risk of osteoporosis and fractures, especially in younger women. The FDA advises against using it for more than 2 years unless necessary. Fertility may take 6 to 12 months to return after stopping. Depo-Provera has also been linked to rare cases of meningioma, a benign brain tumor, and blood clots. Those with a history of bone loss, severe depression, or clotting disorders should use caution. If you experience severe headaches, vision changes, or memory problems, seek medical advice. In cases where you weren't warned of these risks, legal action may be an option. This story contains disturbing testimony regarding sexual abuse, reproductive coercion, and medical harm. All content is derived from court transcripts, medical records, and legally verified statements. The following narrative is based on verified details presented during the Day 13 proceedings in the federal sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. For Mia, the silence began with a syringe. She remembered the cold pressure of the Depo-Provera shot, the mandated birth control injection she was told to receive at home, with Diddy's staff watching. They said it was for convenience, she told the court, but it felt like control. The shots were frequent, delivered regularly, often without warning, and always under pressure. Years later, she was diagnosed with a meningioma, a tumor of the brain and spinal cord. Her doctor had asked if she'd ever used long-term hormonal contraceptives. Mia only nodded. I told him I didn't choose it. It was chosen for me. That line opened her testimony. Inside the federal courtroom in Manhattan, Day 13 of Diddy's trial began with a chilling shift. Prosecutors moved the focus to Mia's medical records, emails, and years of documented silence shaped by fear, trauma, and systemic grooming. Mia, a former assistant, now stood at the heart of the case. Mia's testimony continued. I was pregnant more than once, she said, her voice trembling. He told me I would lose everything if I didn't take care of it. There was no room for children, only loyalty. One incident in 2013 was backed by a clinic receipt. Prosecutors showed medical documentation indicating she had undergone a voluntary termination after a late-night phone call with Combs and his team. Mia said it wasn't voluntary. They used lawyers, money, and fear. I was disposable, but the children, they weren't. Her voice cracked. The courtroom held its breath. When asked why she didn't leave, Mia answered simply, because I wasn't allowed to. Defense attorney Brian Steele took the floor. His tone shifted, less inquiry, more pressure. He pointed to Instagram posts, birthday cards, and affectionate messages. You called your rapist your mentor, he asked. Mia frozen. I called him what I had to. I wanted to survive. Steele kept going. Why did you make scrapbooks? Why did you thank him for your dreams? Mia responded with a whisper. It's called trauma bonding. Look it up. The judge intervened once, then again. Then finally, after an hour of aggressive questioning, he struck down Steele's line of attack. The witness is being psychologically manipulated, he said. Counsel is warned. The courtroom sighed. Some in the back clapped quietly before being silenced. After lunch, the prosecution introduced Mia's medical history. A neurology report tied the onset of symptoms to hormonal imbalance, linked with Depo-Provera. This isn't just a trial about trauma, said the DA. It's about systematic control of bodies, minds, and futures. They presented surveillance footage from a Beverly Hills pharmacy where Mia was picked up by Combs' staff minutes after filling her prescription. Her messages that day included the line, "He says I don't need to be a mother. He says I belong to him. In a final video entry submitted by her therapist Maya recounted a recurring nightmare. I hear my unborn child's heartbeat. And then silence. I see the yacht, the champagne, the smiling faces. No one hears me, except the sea. The court recessed in silence, but no one left unchanged. The court reconvened under tight security and heightened media presence. The judge reminded the gallery of the importance of decorum. Day 13 was about to dig deeper into claims of abuse, not just of power, but of the body and soul. Mia took the stand again. The courtroom held its breath. Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled as she opened her binder. She began with a calm statement that landed like a hammer. I was given injections of Depo-Provera against my will while working in Mr. Combs's home. Gasps echoed. The judge raised a hand in silence. Mia detailed how over the course of her employment from 2009 to 2017, she was subjected to repeated Depo-Provera injections administered by a nurse employed by Diddy in settings far from any clinical oversight. The shots, she said, were not requested but demanded. They told me it was for safety to protect the family, Mia explained. But I later understood it was about control. It meant I couldn't get pregnant, not without his permission. She added, he wanted freedom. I was the one paying for it. When asked why she complied, Mia responded, I was monitored. I lived in his properties. I couldn't go anywhere without approval. My body wasn't mine. In 2021, long after she left Combs's employ, Mia was diagnosed with a spinal meningioma, a tumor linked in recent lawsuits to prolonged Depo-Provera use. Her medical records, authenticated by her physician, were submitted into evidence. I wasn't warned about the risks, Mia told the court. I wasn't even allowed to say no. The courtroom remained silent, stunned. Mia then dropped a devastating truth. She had been pregnant by Diddy, not once, multiple times. He knew, every time. He decided what happened next, and each time I was told, it's not the right time, this could ruin everything. She was instructed to visit specific doctors under aliases. Abortions were scheduled, paid for, and followed up on, not by her, but by staff. I remember being told, this never happened. Smile and get back to work. Defense attorney Brian Steele began cross-examination by attempting to discredit her. He displayed Instagram posts of Mia smiling at Diddy's events. Would someone so traumatized make birthday scrapbooks for her alleged abuser, he asked. It was survival, Mia shot back. Would someone raped and manipulated tag her rapist as a mentor? I did what I was told. Because if I didn't, I'd lose my job or worse. He leaned in. You stayed in contact for years. After leaving, correct, you still called him Puff. You still sent him love. Mia looked down, voice breaking. I sent those messages because I thought maybe I could stay safe, the judge warned Steele. You will not use this courtroom to re-traumatize a witness. As Steele continued pressing Mia on an email reading, You know I love you and I'll do anything for you, her voice cracked. You keep asking why I stayed, why I smiled, why I said I loved him. Maybe the real question is why did I have to, she wept. The courtroom was still. Judge Subramanian stood. Mr. Steele, you are instructed to cease this line of questioning. Further attempts to manipulate or emotionally destabilize the witness will result in a contempt motion. Steele protested but was silenced. After a brief recess, Mia returned. She told the jury, This isn't just about me. It's about the women who didn't make it to this courtroom. The girls are still stuck. The silence we're expected to keep. She held up a medical scan. This is my brain. This is the tumor they found after all the shots. This is real. And if I have to crawl through fire to make them believe me, then so be it. Journalists tapped out stories. Court sketch artists drew faster. The gallery leaned in. A former colleague of Mia's, seated in the back row, whispered, She's not lying. We saw it. We lived it. The prosecution closed the day by moving to introduce medical expert testimony, confirming the known side effects of prolonged Depo-Provera use, particularly when administered without informed consent. The courtroom emptied slowly. Outside cameras rolled. Commentators dissected every syllable of Mia's words. Hashtags surged again. Justice for Mia, Schwachin meningioma trial. Silenced voices, the nation was listening. Day 14 of the trial began with a courtroom still reverberating from the explosive testimonies of the previous day. The seats were filled even earlier, reporters clustered around the entrance. Security was visibly heightened. Mia entered wearing black. Her expression was focused, no longer shattered but resolved. She had made it through the cross-examination. Now it was time for her voice to re-emerge. Judge Subramanian opened with a brief directive. Any further attempts at psychological coercion during witness questioning will result in contempt. This is not theater. This is justice. The prosecution called Dr. Natalie Harris, a neurologist from Johns Hopkins. Her credentials were impeccable. She had treated over 200 patients with Depo-Provera-related meningiomas. Dr. Harris confirmed, based on the documented injections Mia received, an abnormally high frequency of Depo-Provera from 2011 to 2016, administered in unregulated conditions. Such prolonged exposure significantly increases the risk of meningiomas. The tumor identified on her third scan is consistent with hormonal influence. The court fell silent. Pam Bondi nodded, then presented the medical chart, a laminated timeline with injection dates, dosage irregularities, and overlapping with events Mia had described. On it were handwritten notes recovered from Diddy's staff. Remind Mia shot tomorrow, no delay, discreet, no records. The next witness took the courtroom by surprise. An older woman in her 50s, identity sealed, voice distorted. She had worked in Diddy's household. She was a girl. That's what I saw. She thought she had a say. But she was being handled. She testified that on multiple occasions she had seen injections administered at Diddy's LA residence. When she asked why Mia couldn't visit a clinic, the response from the house manager was simple. It's a control thing. She also confirmed a chilling detail. I heard a fight once. Mia said she was pregnant. He told her, handle it or disappear. The next day, the doctor came to the house. After that, she wouldn't look anyone in the eye. After lunch, Diddy's team attempted damage control, but the momentum had shifted. Pam Bondi returned with one goal to prove a pattern. She called 3 former staffers assistants interns, even a former makeup artist, all under aliases. All delivered nearly identical stories: isolation tactics, unmonitored birth control injections, verbal threats when resisting requests. One of them recounted being driven to a Beverly Hills condo where a woman identified only as S administered her shot. No paperwork, no clinic, just a couch and a cooler. Back on the stand, Mia returned for redirection. Bondi asked, "Why did you stay so long?" Mia took a breath. "Because they made me believe I chose it. That it was all about access, but it wasn't. It was about silence." She described 3 pregnancies. "I wasn't allowed to feel like a mother. I was a liability. I was told each time, if you love this life, don't make it messy." She broke down only once, describing the ultrasound image of a child she never got to meet. The room was still. Even the defense team looked shaken. Then came the confrontation. Diddy's lead attorney tried to pivot the narrative once more, attempting to introduce Mia's post-employment texts as signs of reconciliation. Judge Subramanian interjected. "She is not on trial for being polite to her former abuser." Bondi leaned into that. "You stayed in contact." Why Mia didn't hesitate. "Because when you've survived something like this, you don't always leave with rage. Sometimes you leave with hope that maybe it was all just a bad dream." The final witness of the day was a forensic accountant. He had followed money trails for decades, and this time his target was Diddy's private expenditures, labeled medical services. His findings: $410,000 over 6 years for unlicensed wellness consultants. $85,000 in crypto payments to anonymous women labeled caregivers, and one large payout, $600,000 to a third-party shell company 3 days after Mia's final abortion. Pam Bondi closed with this line: "This wasn't just silence, it was profit." The courtroom buzzed. Reporters left early to file headlines, and Mia, for the first time in years, walked out with her shoulders square. She had spoken, and they had listened. Courtroom cameras flickered as day 14 began. Outside, protesters gathered in growing numbers, some holding signs with Mia's face and words. This was survival. Others waved banners demanding Diddy's incarceration. Inside, the tension was suffocating. Mia's attorneys entered with a sealed manila folder. Its contents would shape the next turning point in the trial. Judge Subramanian reviewed the documents, nodded grimly, and approved them for public release. Inside, a series of medical reports from 2017 to 2022, confirming that Mia had developed meningioma, a type of brain and spinal tumor. What shocked the courtroom wasn't just the diagnosis but the linkage. Depo-Provera, a hormonal birth control shot. The same birth control Mia had testified she was forced to take without consultation inside Diddy's estate. The injections were administered by an unlicensed wellness consultant, who was later revealed to be on Diddy's payroll. An expert testified, "The frequency of use and long-term exposure, especially under stress, may heighten the risk. The correlation here is concerning." Mia sat stone-faced. Then she spoke. "He wanted to control my body so badly, he poisoned it." Defense attorney Brian Steele resumed cross-examination. But something had changed. Public sentiment had shifted, and Steele now walked a razor-thin line. "You stayed for years, didn't you?" "I stayed alive." "That's different. You sent him birthday cards, gifts, messages saying you loved him. I also sent those while recovering from panic attacks. Choose which truth you want." Steele grew aggressive. "You're manipulating this court with half-stories and selective tears." Mia's hands clenched. Judge Subramanian raised his gavel. "Mr. Steele, rein in your tone. Final warning." But he pushed further, projecting Instagram photos. "This was you smiling. This was you at his pool party. This was you hugging him. Were you scared of these?" Mia finally broke. "Yes, I smiled so I wouldn't be screamed at. I posed so I wouldn't be punished. You call that evidence? That's camouflage." She turned toward the jury. "People don't always run when they're hurt. Sometimes they stay and make themselves invisible. That's how you survive." Next, a surprise witness, a former staff nurse from the estate. Testifying under immunity, she confirmed Mia's account. "She cried after every injection. I asked if she wanted to stop. She whispered, 'He'll know. He always knows.'" Courtroom murmurs turned to gasps when the nurse pulled out a handwritten log. Dated, signed, sealed. It showed at least 14 injections given over 3 years, all undocumented medically. She was treated like an experiment, not a human. Prosecutors shifted to financial control. They presented a spreadsheet showing expenses billed under Mia's name, without her knowledge: jewelry flights, club appearances, apartment leases. She wasn't just emotionally controlled, the prosecutor said. She was financially exploited. Emails revealed Diddy's assistant referring to Mia as a compliant asset, code words for controllable staff. And in one jarring message to a financial advisor, "Keep Mia close. She's valuable, but keep the leash short." The news exploded across networks. Medical communities called for an investigation into off-label hormone control. Hashtags like "Oshachi Justice Formula" and "Chacha are Deep Danger" began trending globally. Women who had worked in the music industry began stepping forward, posting anonymous stories of similar coercion. A coalition formed, Voices Unmuted, offering legal support for survivors of manipulation masked as mentorship. Then came the most personal evidence yet: a digital diary, password protected, discovered on a forgotten iPad. Contained within were videos Mia recorded late at night alone, whispering to the camera. I want to quit, but he says I'll be blacklisted. He tells me my dreams go through him. I missed a period. He told me it's nothing. Send someone with a needle. I feel like I'm vanishing. The courtroom wept in silence. Even members of the defense looked away. After the final diary entry, Judge Subramanian called a recess. When court resumed, he addressed the room directly. I remind all parties this is not theater. This is trauma relived in real time. He then turned to Brian Steele. You have crossed ethical lines repeatedly. The court hereby revokes your cross-examination rights for the remainder of this testimony. The gavel fell. The room gasped. Outside the courtroom, reporters scrambled to adjust headlines. Defense silenced. Mia's voice prevails. Mia was excused. As she stepped down, a juror nodded solemnly. She mouthed, "Thank you." The judge adjourned for the day. That night, news anchors didn't just replay testimony, they aired segments on Depo-Provera, trauma bonding, and celebrity exploitation. This was no longer a case, it was a reckoning. And Mia, the assistant, the survivor, the mother, was now the voice of that change. The courtroom reopened on day 14 under tightened security. Protesters outside carried signs reading "Justice for Mia" and "Stop silencing survivors." Inside, a nervous tension lingered. Mia returned to the stand. Her eyes, once fierce with resolve, were now dimmed by exhaustion. A court officer discreetly placed tissues beside her. Prosecutor Langton resumed. "Ms. Wexler," he asked gently, "can you clarify what happened after your final departure from Mr. Combs's employment?" Mia nodded slowly. "I was diagnosed with a meningioma, a tumor pressing into my spine. The neurologist asked me about hormonal injections. I had been given Depo-Provera for years. Diddy made sure of it, made sure." Langton pressed. Mia's voice cracked. "Yes, he had it delivered, administered at the house. I wasn't allowed to refuse. If I questioned it, he said I wasn't committed. He said, 'We don't do accidents in my world.'" A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Dr. Julia Bhatt, an oncologist, was called to the stand. She confirmed the correlation. In certain genetic predispositions, extended use of progestin-only birth control, especially via injection, can lead to abnormal growths, including meningiomas. Would this patient have been aware of that risk? Langton asked. Not unless properly informed. Dr. Bhatt turned to Mia and offered a soft nod. Langton introduced Exhibit 74B photographs of Mia's injection calendar, maintained by a staff nurse. Court gasped as it showed 23 injections across 5 years, always logged, always signed off. Then, Exhibit 75 photos of Mia's medical scan, her spinal tumor clearly circled. The prosecution rested. Defense attorney Brian Steele rose again. The same man the judge had already warned. "Ms. Wexler," he said, "after all that trauma, all those accusations, you still messaged Mr. Combs after you left. Still called him Puff. Still said you loved him." "Objection. Withdrawn," he said, grinning. He brought up Exhibit 89 screenshots of Instagram DMs from Mia to Diddy messages from 2020 and 2021, referencing personal check-ins and condolences after Kim Porter's death. "Mia," he said, "you say this man orchestrated your trauma, yet you remained affectionate. That's hard for anyone here to square." Mia gripped the podium. "It's called survival, Mr. Steele. You'd know if you'd lived it." Steele pivoted to financial records, large settlements Mia received. He leaned into the implication. "Was this all about money?" Langton objected. The judge sustained, but the damage was done. Mia began to cry, then breaking formality. Steele leaned forward. "You lied to your attorneys before. Are you lying now?" Judge Subramanian slammed her gavel. "Mr. Steele, one more psychological maneuver and I will hold you in contempt. This is your final warning." But Steele didn't stop. Within minutes, he returned to Mia's scrapbook, the one she'd made for Diddy in 2015, and read aloud, "To the man who gave me purpose. I will never forget what we built." Mia whispered I was conditioned. The judge stood. The court will recess. Mr. Steele, your cross is revoked. You are hereby stripped of lead questioning privileges pending ethics review. Gasps filled the room. That afternoon, Mia trended across every major social platform. Hashtags, "Law, Protect Mia," and "Depot Destroyed" trended in tandem. Celebrities posted in solidarity. Former assistants of Diddy added anonymous statements, one even publishing a redacted NDA. It read simply, "Failure to comply may result in reputational harm." A quiet bomb. Mia, off the stand, but still in the room, clutched her necklace, a small locket. Langton asked the court's permission to clarify a sensitive issue. "Mia, have you ever carried a pregnancy during your employment with Mr. Combs?" Her face frozen. "Yes. 3. None survived. All terminated by instruction. 1. Under threat." "And these pregnancies, were they all the result of the same relationship?" Mia nodded. "Did you want to keep any of them?" She closed her eyes. "All of them." An anonymous tip led to the recovery of a phone. On it, a recording. Mia's voice, an unsent voicemail to a friend. "I don't know how to get out. He says I owe him, that I'm part of the brand. I just want to take my baby and go." The prosecution played it in court. The room went still. That night, a major pharmaceutical watchdog announced it was reviewing its partnership with Depot Provera's distributor. Senator Jackson from New York called for a congressional hearing into hormonal coercion in private employment. The case had moved beyond Diddy. It had become systemic. And Mia, broken, betrayed, and brave, stood at the epicenter. The final day of testimony arrived with grim anticipation. The courtroom was saturated with media survivors and silent tension. As Mia sat at the witness bench, flanked by her legal team, Judge Subramanian called for order. The prosecution stood one last time to paint the complete picture. Their closing arguments recapped the timeline of abuse, but the new element, the consequences of the forced contraceptive injections, was now front and center. Graphic medical diagrams of Mia's spinal scans were shown to the jury with annotations from licensed neurologists confirming the growth of a meningioma. The label at the bottom of each image read, "Depot Provera, correlation under investigation." The courtroom listened in silence as Mia's attorney concluded. She didn't just suffer. She survived a regimen of domination masked as loyalty. And the brain tumor, that was the price of her silence. Defense attorney Brian Steele attempted one final pivot. He claimed Mia's diagnosis could be coincidental, citing unrelated genetic predisposition. But his voice lacked the edge it once held. The jury no longer looked at him with curiosity, only calculation. Judge Subramanian intervened multiple times, particularly when Steele referred to Mia's continued communication with Diddy after her departure. "You're asking why a prisoner shook the hand of their jailer," she said flatly. "You're not entitled to that manipulation in my courtroom." As closing arguments ended, Mia gave a final statement. Her voice, though exhausted, carried through the chamber. "I stayed because I was afraid. I smiled because I needed to survive. And I'm here because the children I never got to meet deserve peace. If I can't hold them, at least I can hold the truth." Deliberations lasted only 7 hours. When they returned, the foreperson rose and delivered the unanimous verdict. "We find the defendant, Sean Combs, guilty on all charges." The room exhaled. Diddy, impassive, was immediately remanded without bail. Outside, the courthouse steps overflowed with supporters, holding placards reading, "Believe MIA," and "Silence isn't consent." The verdict spurred nationwide reaction. Victims of workplace abuse, reproductive coercion, and celebrity manipulation came forward in droves. Multiple agencies launched probes into corporate complicity in artist management firms. A congressional committee began drafting Mia's law, targeting covert contraceptive administration without consent. Meanwhile, women's health advocates partnered with legal watchdogs to create secure reporting platforms for entertainment professionals. 2 weeks later, sentencing was held in the same Manhattan courtroom. Prosecutors requested a maximum sentence. The judge agreed, citing psychological manipulation, abuse of influence, and irreversible bodily harm. Diddy received a 45-year federal sentence with no parole. As he was escorted out, he glanced back, not at Mia, but at the cameras. A final performance. One that no longer charmed anyone. Mia didn't give another interview. But in a public appearance months later, she attended the unveiling of a community center for women's trauma recovery, built in part with restitution funds from the case. The center bore a plaque, "For those told to forget, remember louder." Outside, a mural depicted Mia, not in sorrow, but in resistance. Her arms folded, her eyes are steady. Behind her, shadows of children danced in light. Her story had broken silence, but her legacy was just beginning.